Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the next episode in the Purposely podcast. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to Natasha Margaritis. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you, Emily. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Hey, everyone who is tuning in.
Fantastic. So I've noticed, I've done a bit of research about you. Obviously, you're in Melbourne. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. Good old Melbourne.
Yep. So we're both in Melbourne. So we're both in stage 4 restrictions. I'm assuming you're at home?
Very much so. And it's definitely an interesting time that we're living in right now with stage 4, but got lots to be grateful for at the same time, you know.
That's it.
Yeah.
So to kick off, just so we can get an idea about who you are and what you do, I like to ask guests very simple question, and this is an if question now. So if you were allowed to go to a barbecue or a dinner party and someone said, "Oh, nice to meet you, Natasha. What do you do for a living?" How would you explain what you do? Because you've got a couple of hats, and I'd be fascinated. What's your elevator pitch?
Well, the first thing I would say is that I wake up every single day to help founders, entrepreneurs, business owners to really find hope and resilience, because when we unite as a community, we can really make a life-changing difference in people's lives. And that's literally what drives me every day to get up in the morning. So, some of the ways I do that is by actually just making people feel safe and comfortable and supported, and just love people unconditionally and see endless possibilities for their lives and for their communities around them. But what I do just so happens to be the fact that I run operations for a beautiful entrepreneurial community at National Australia Bank. I'm also a content creator that is very much aligned with everything I just shared about really empowering and uplifting business owners and entrepreneurs. Another facet to that is that I'm massive about letting people know that their story matters. And so when I create content or when I run live events at National Australia Bank or wherever, it's all about just letting people know that they have great worth, that their story matters, and that they don't ever have to look upon their life experiences with regret. That every life experience is a useful one, and that we can turn every experience we've been through in life into one filled with purpose. So that's essentially what I would say, I guess.
Amazing. You're talking my language, because the purpose of Generation Us is really about creating purpose-led leadership and purpose-led leaders. So I'd love to delve into that. And that totally resonates with me, because I truly believe everybody has a story, and great leaders really connect with that story and get the learnings and use that to share their wisdom and their authenticity. So further to that, what is your story? So let's go way back to the start. Like, I love to hear the story behind the story. So how did you end up being passionate about what you're doing today, and what's your journey been?
Every time I'm asked that question, I have the image of a little girl who at the age of 14 or 15 realized a massive shift was about to happen in her life because of the death of her father. And
Wow.
as I reflect back on that memory, every time I'm asked this question, I think of, why does it matter so much? Why did he matter so much? And in turn, why did my mother matter so much to me that's the first memory that comes back to me? Probably because as a child, I grew up watching my father struggle with running a business and struggle without the support and the mentorship or the community around him. So failures were very much the only thing that he saw, in front of him. And so, having to watch him battle through depression and alcoholism and drug abuse, as a business owner who's running a hospital and as a doctor himself. This business was not his choice. It was thrust upon him at a very young age when he just got married to my mother.
Wow.
So it's a really earth-shattering memory for me, where I felt like, looking back on that, I want to be able to make a difference today in the lives of entrepreneurs and business owners, to let them know that they're not alone, that there is hope, that they can reach out for help. And I'm not talking about just, picking up the helpline and talking, regarding mental health. I'm talking about ongoing support, ongoing community, ongoing doing life with one another. And that's one of the reasons why I love my position at NAB, is because it's all about just being there for each other and having each other's back. That we all have the same mission and the goal to have an impact on the world in our own unique way with businesses, products, and services that we're building. And that no matter what you go through, there's someone else there who could probably relate. So you're not necessarily alone. And that one single factor could have potentially saved my dad's life if that was around him. And, the overflow effect was that I watched my mother have to put food on the table on her own. After that, for about 25 years now, going on 30, I lose track of being a swim coach, because, she was a really talented swimmer as a young person, and she turned it into a business when she had no choice, So she's still a swim coach today. If it wasn't for COVID-19, she'd probably be teaching some of the biggest names in terms of politicians and actors and actresses in India right now and whatnot, and all of their families and their children and stuff. So she loves what she does. So she's very purpose-driven about empowering others to really see worth in themselves, body image issues with women and children, fearing the water, and helping them overcome their fears. She's also very purpose-driven in that sense. But I wonder if she too had the support and the empowerment and the community around her, I wonder if she'd be running a training academy now. So it's just that different perspective on what I saw growing up, and the fact that my brother's also a business owner. So it's definitely something that's very close to home for me.
Amazing, and so important right now, because there are a lot of business owners out there in Australia and in Victoria, especially right now, who are really struggling. Like the amount of pressure that is being placed on business owners, particularly small business, because we know that small business is the biggest employer in Australia. So how have you been supporting the community in this time? Because I know that the village, I've been there. It's such a beautiful environment to be in, and it's inspiring, and the whole small business community really needs that group and fellow entrepreneurs that they can bounce things off, and they're not able to do that at the moment. So how have you been supporting the community during these times?
That's a very interesting question. I think every community-driven organization or platform, I guess, is going through a similar struggle, where we are having to really think about how we adapt to the change that is the current landscape. That COVID-19 has really thrust all of us into a space of real innovation and thinking outside the box, I guess. And so we are very much adapting to digital, edutaining, community-driven experiences. So whether it's really understanding the community need first, understanding what it is they need for their business right now, and a lot of the conversations are around marketing and around whether their digital presence is spot on, or what they can do to improve and how they can be equipped in that area. That's the hot topic right now. But so understanding that and then really putting it into practice, really finding opportunities to bring them good, edutaining events, webinar experiences, or and also providing that community that once was in a physical location, but giving them an opportunity to do it digitally. and still be one with each other. Zoom is amazing that way. We have the facility of breakout rooms. So it's all about perspective, really. It's all about, it's not ideal. COVID-19 has made things not so ideal. But what is ideal is that despite whatever's happening, we can still make a difference. We can still put our backs into it and, bring people together.
Yeah, and it's super, super important because a lot of industries are really suffering right now, and they're being forced to really shut down in a lot of cases. So I'm really curious about how you help business owners really connect with their purpose and their story, because I think that it's so important in this day and age, in this digital world where people connect with your story and people. So what's your advice to entrepreneurs out there who are like, well, I don't really have a interesting story and I've really got nothing to say, or what's your process?
That's a really potent question, because it's the problem I want to solve. I mean, I've heard so many business owners say that exact same thing, that, my story really isn't all that dramatic, and my story isn't something people want to hear. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing's really happened in my life that sort of had a change in trajectory or whatever, that sort of exploded my life, and then I had this massive life-changing moment. None of that happened to me, Natasha. So I don't understand why, I should start sharing my story. But here's the thing about storytelling, right? Aside from the fact that it helps you build trust, and it helps, the element of transparency, and, your story is timeless, which means you can repurpose it over and over and over again in so many different shapes or forms. Aside from all of that stuff, when it comes to brand building, let's just talk about the fact that a story, when you look back on your story, you get self-aware. You go through a self-discovery process of where you've been all these years, what it took for you to get to where you are now, and why on earth are you running the business that you're running right now?
Yeah.
Okay. And most often than not, there is this beautiful why story that is uncovered when you actually learn how to map your story. And it's actually nothing fancy. Let me be honest with you. It's nothing fancy. It's actually just understanding the value of doing so. That's the actual aha moment. And once you start to map your story out right from your childhood, which is what's considered our formative years, the childhood to our teenage years, our formative years, once you establish that, it's literally like a snowball effect after that, all the way through to where you are now. And essentially, every single anecdote from your story, every single bite-sized memory, shall we say, has a life lesson in it. Some are more potent than others. And I always suggest that if you're not ready to engage with that memory publicly, like share it with the world, there's a high likelihood that you actually haven't processed that memory just yet. It might be a little bit of a painful one. And so therefore park it on the shelf and come back to it a couple of years from now or something when you're ready to share it. But there are fragments of our story that can strategically be shared because of the life lessons that you have a conviction about. And it's about that conviction. So if you don't map your story, you won't know where you've been.
Yeah.
And what it took to get where we are today, why you're running this business. So that's the first step, right? The second is, let's figure out what these life lessons are. Let's understand your values from those life lessons. And then all of a sudden, you can strategically build a beautiful, trustworthy brand, purpose-driven brand out of just that. And it's not about, I just want to wipe out this misconception that storytelling is all about unearthing your deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah, yep.
It's not. Let me put everyone at ease. I'm sure you'd agree, Emily. It's not about just pouring out your whole heart and bearing it all, standing there naked in front of your audience. It's not about that. It's really about understanding yourself, where you've been, and standing strong in the conviction that you are moving in the right direction and you believe strongly in the cause that you're chasing after. That's what it's about. And people start to, when you share that, people start to believe what you believe. And that's when it's movement.
That's so powerful. And it's so true. It's the process of looking back and reflecting and getting the learnings, and they don't have to be these massive life-changing moments where you're like, I mean, some people have those, and like I've met heaps of people who do, but maybe to give us an example, can you think of one of like someone that you've met or a client that you've worked with that was like, oh, Natasha, I don't have a story, like I got nothing, and through the process that you went through with them, they were like, oh my Lord, wow, and they had like a bit of an aha moment and became really inspired from that?
Yes, absolutely. So there was someone who went from running a book club to wanting to write books for kids. And that's all he knew. That's all he knew. And he didn't know why. But the moment he jumped on a call with me and I just asked all the right questions to uncover his true motives behind why, right? That's when he started to feel comfortable, safe, and supported enough to really go like, wow, I didn't realize there was a story behind why I want to impact kids' lives now. This trajectory shift that happened just out of a simple passion for children, was from his subconscious, but that self-awareness piece hadn't happened yet.
Yep.
And self-discovery piece hadn't happened yet. And so when we walked through the map, how to map your story process, everything started to get unearthed. All the dots started to get connected.
Yep.
And then he had this massive aha moment about in week 2, I think, where he went, I actually know why it's from my childhood that all these memories started coming back to me, where now I know why I'm so passionate about writing, books for kids that actually empower kids to go for gold. It's from my story. There's no other source of truth but from my own story. And I just never realized that my subconscious was telling me that. And I just didn't know. Sometimes people just don't know that it's been there all along.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. And, Simon Sinek says very famously, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So it's actually it's not even like a conscious thing, I think, that we decide to buy a brand or buy a person. It's actually brain science, which is what you're alluding to before, around the fact that it builds connection, it builds trust. And I mean, I've watched lots of TEDx talks and TED talks about storytelling because I love a good story. My dad actually has a funny saying that you should never let the truth get in the way of a good story, but that's not 100% true. But so I can't even remember where I was going with that one, but I just got excited because I love it. I absolutely love it. So how can people?
We were talking about Simon Sinek, yeah.
Simon Sinek, yeah. People don't do, so that's right. So the brain science, that's what I was getting at. Sorry. So do you have any idea, or can you explain to people what happens to, like, chemically in your brain when someone's telling a good story? Do you know stuff about that?
Ooh, that's a very cool topic. There are chemicals in the brain that are released front of mind. So when you think about oxytocin, when you think about all these chemicals, they have a job to do. Some produce the feel good factor. I'm just going to simplify it here for everyone listening. I'm not going to complicate it too much with jargon. It's the last thing anyone wants. So there's a chemical in the brain that's released whenever someone tells a story, that is a feel good factor. It makes you feel warm, fuzzy inside.
Yeah.
And it is literally, and it's not cortisol, because cortisol is a stress hormone.
Yep.
Okay, it makes you feel stressed, and that's what you feel when you're watching a protagonist in a movie go through hell, and you feel that emotional stress. And it's good for us because we're going through the valleys and coming through to the hilltops. But that the story itself, of the transformation arc that we're sharing about a character, about ourselves, we really feel good when we arrive at the end result. We feel good, like that we've also been victorious with them, and we start to
Yep.
reimagine. Yeah, we start to reimagine our own childhood memories. What I was just sharing with you about my childhood. There is a very high likelihood that whoever's listening right now, including yourself, Emily, you got transported to where when you were a 15-year-old. What were you doing when you were 15? What was I doing when I was 15? Those kind of subconscious questions start popping up, and you sort of paint your own little picture of who you are and how you relate to the story. That's what
Yeah.
stories do. They help you relate. They have that human connection,
Yeah.
but also helps you feel that good, warm, fuzzy feeling inside. And that's what the brain is, a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's just about using the right tools to help connect with others.
And that's so important these days. If people are trying to build their personal brand on LinkedIn or other digital platforms, and I had Nathaniel Bibby on the show a couple of weeks ago, but maybe it was a month ago. I don't know. The weeks of just melding into one giant 2020. But he was talking about when he creates content, he thinks about the brain science and what chemical he wants people to release in their brains. So does he want it to be a feel good story where people feel good, or does he want it to trigger a cortisol release and make them feel bad? So what's your thoughts on that? Because I never thought about creating content like that, but very smart, very powerful.
Could you repeat that one again, just so I understand the question correctly?
So Nathaniel Bibby said that when he creates any kind of content on LinkedIn, he thinks about what chemical do I want that person to release in their brain when they're watching or listening or reading, and is it a story where you want them to feel like, ooh, like cortisol, like stressed out, like, oh, geez, or do you want them to feel good? So how do you feel about that?
I think it's that's an interesting perspective. I don't think I have necessarily thought of the brain chemical release that I intend for people to have. But what I can tell you, I don't want people to feel a dopamine hit every time they land on my content, because a dopamine hit can sometimes be, although it is technically a feel good hormone, it's kind of an addiction now with social media. It's attached to that addiction to social media. That every time you get likes and engagement and stuff like that on your posts, or when you see hundreds of replies to a comment you might have left on somebody else's post, you get that hit of dopamine and you're high off of it. Yeah, but then you have a massive plummet after that. So that's not my intention for people to be on a high, and then when they come off of the high, it's kind of like a sugar rush. When you come off of it, it's just like really low. So that's definitely something I want to avoid. But I want I wouldn't know which specifically that I want people to feel every time they see my content, but I definitely want them to feel that my content lifts them up in the day, makes them feel more than, not less than.
Love it.
Makes them feel like they can rise up against any challenge and go for gold. So it's definitely an empowerment piece that I constantly strive to do for people.
Love it. And it's really interesting because if you think about the news, and there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going around at the moment around how irresponsible the news are, because all they're doing is breeding fear and getting that negative cortisol reaction from the content that they're producing.
Exactly.
And then it's actually not healthy and it's not helpful. So hang on, Tim. Sorry. My husband just walked in. I told him that I was doing the podcast. Anyway, that's all right. But yeah, I think that the message is that anyone who has a platform to be able to educate people and spread information should be using it to build people up, is what I'm hearing from you. And I love that, because there is a lot of people out there who are just consuming really, really negative content. And, you know, Facebook and Instagram are full of a lot of negative stuff right now. And everybody seems really heightened and really super sensitive, and like everyone's got an opinion, and it's kind of it's really full on. Like a lot of people are angry and attacking each other. So what's your advice to people out there who are feeling just completely overwhelmed, and maybe they've got, you know, content fatigue?
What I would really suggest is pick your top 5 speakers, motivators, podcasters. You know, just have 5 people that you follow and you know will lift you up, build you up, will add value to your life. And not just because they put out amazing content and their content has gone viral. So, and I'm not just saying this because my content is about empowerment. Because empowerment can come in so many different ways and shapes and forms. It's really, you know, what you relate to. And, you know, if my content isn't necessarily aligned with what you believe you need right now, you know, then find someone, find those top 5, your go-to, you know, find your 5. Let's just put it that way. Right.
Yeah.
And just follow them consistently, and allow their messages to really to get you to think about it and see whether it resonates with you, see whether your values align. And if at any point you feel like, no, this doesn't sound right, don't be one among the herd, is what I would say, because then you get swayed, you get influenced, and your decisions get influenced subconsciously by these voices. No matter how much of a following they may have, you've got to ask yourself whether it aligns with your values and your beliefs. You know, first and foremost, and keep that in check so you don't follow like 100 different people, because that's where the overwhelming piece of consuming content comes in play.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. I love that. I'm feeling like I need to do a social media detox at the moment, because I think everyone is over consuming social media and content, because we're all,
I agree,
kind of at home. We're all looking for a distraction. Like motivation is really difficult for some people at the moment. I'm an extrovert. I get my energy from people, and as beautiful as this interaction is, I would love to be in a room with you or in a cafe, because it's just it's a different feeling. So how do you recommend people can still get their fix of human contact and connectivity in this time? Because I think a lot of people are struggling with that.
Human connectivity. Right now, I'd say pick up the phone and talk to your loved ones. Make an effort to have meaningful conversations. It's not about who you speak to. It's about whether you can have a meaningful conversation with them. Actually, it just reminds me of the brain chemical that I would actually like to see more released more in people's brains. It's serotonin.
Yes.
Because technically serotonin is like a natural mood stabilizer. And it really helps stabilize your emotions and your motor skills and stuff like that. So it's known to reduce depression, anxiety. It's actually, when the more it's released in the body in a stable way, it actually helps with so many gut functions as well when it comes to digestion and all of that stuff. You know, when you're nervous before a big speech or nervous before a big presentation, a lot of people go through like horrible digestion issues because you know of what's going on in their gut. Like you call it butterflies, and they run to the washroom, but actually it's because that you know balance of you know mood and is not being produced enough. So there's not enough serotonin in our body because we're taking in the wrong stuff. So the reason why meaningful conversations that you really truly care and love and respect has such an impact on our mood and how we view the world and how we view ourselves is because when we engage in these meaningful conversations with our family members or those that we trust and respect, we tend to understand that our lives have value and meaning, and we lean on those more than others. But we've got to do it intentionally. If we don't do it intentionally, we'll be having all these different conversations, which we normally do with our work or our businesses anyway. We're pretty much zoomed out with so many of these digital conversations that we're having. But just going back to bare bones basics, just pick up the phone and talk to someone.
Yep.
You know, just have a quiet conversation with your mom or your sister, your cousin, or your friend from Greece, or I don't know, wherever they are in the world. Pick up the phone and have that conversation, and make it meaningful, because you will remember that. People don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel, and I really believe in that Maya Angelou quote.
Yep.
I know it's sort of thrown around a little bit as a cliche, but it's true. It is a matter of fact.
Yeah.
That when you have meaningful conversations, you remember it, and it's etched in your memory forever. So.
Absolutely love that. Natasha, I could speak to you all day. We've got so many common interests.
Yeah.
But we might leave it there.
I can see that. We're deeply aligned.
We are. It's lovely talking to someone who's into all of the same things that I am. But if people, I think that the biggest takeaway from me is to continue with those really important, authentic conversations where you're going deep. It's not just, because I feel like technology sometimes takes away some of the authenticity or the deepness to conversation. So it's super important to make sure that you're having those great conversations with people you love. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm definitely going to get on the blower this afternoon and make some phone calls. But
yeah, I've got to pick up the phone and call my mom now.
Yes, yay. So if people want to find out more about you, where's the best place for them to look?
So I love having a primary platform because I feel like context switching is a fallacy. Just putting it out there. So my primary platform is LinkedIn. It's a beautiful place to meet so many different kinds of people. It's evolved with the help of Microsoft taking over. So it's been beautiful there. That's my primary place that you can find me. Just look me up at Natasha Margaritis, and it's pretty straightforward. You'll find my profile popping up. There's not many of those names out there. So that's the first one, and Instagram is the next one with the same name, same approach. So yeah, but just shoot me a direct message, or if you want to shoot me an email as well. My email address is also on my LinkedIn profile. So I'd love to hear from you guys.
Amazing. We'll also share Natasha's handles when we process the podcast. But Natasha, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time with our community. There's been so many gold nuggets in this conversation, and I've absolutely loved having you on the show. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's Friday today, Friday.
Yes.
Friday to stay at home for another weekend. But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah, and you got to make the most out of it. Got to change. It's a matter of perspective. Focus on what you do have, not what you don't have. And I'm personally very grateful that I have a husband who supports me, who is forever for me, and I've got a roof over my head. I've got food on the table. I've got an amazing full-time position. So many things to be grateful for. And I'm grateful for this conversation as well, Emily. It's been so meaningful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. And we will speak again soon. I'm 100% sure.
Oh, no doubt about it.